Hi, my name is Daniel Esposito, and I wanted to talk about makerspaces in libraries. First of all, what are makerspaces? Makerspaces are defined as spaces where students can make things, a place for hands on learning where ideas and tools are shared. In schools and libraries, that space may be designated area, a room, a table, or even a portable cart. Some of the makerspaces concepts I wanted to discuss in this presentation are creating makerspaces for all, envisioning makerspaces for future libraries, scaffolding in library lessons, and then talking about what's old is new again. So, why are makerspaces such a good fit for all in school libraries? Makerspaces are both sites of informal learning and are more than just resource closets. They are also act as interdisciplinary spaces, and they provide equitable access to materials and resources. So when we talk about envisioning what future libraries will look like, how do makerspaces help? One of the things that makerspaces could do is draw students who are not typically attracted into the school library through its focus. The concept of doing suggests that the library can be an activity space for students to engage in learning. And by situating makerspaces in the library, schools also make the connection between learning, reading, and research, which is very important. The next thing we're going to talk about is scaffolding. So, what is scaffolding? Scaffolding refers to a method where teachers offer a particular kind of support to students as they learn and develop a new concept or skill. So, how does successful scaffolding actually occur within a makerspace environment? First of all, scaffolds need to facilitate learning by constraining the possibilities for action. To succeed, they must ensure low barriers to entry while at the same time being challenging enough for students to get deep and sustained learning. With too few constraints, the possibilities may be vast, but the barriers to participation are high because the users must themselves discover what is possible, bring the ideas, plan their project, build the skills, overcome setbacks, and so forth. With too many constraints, the possibilities are too few, and users generally lose interest quickly. So, some of the scaffolding ideas I wanted to talk about were with this bridge challenge project that I had done with my second through fifth grade classes. What I did was I had them in groups of two or three, depending on class size. They were directed to build a bridge with either Legos or rock blocks. We used rock blocks. I put a timer on the board and gave the instructions for the first 5 minutes to build a bridge that was 12 inches long. The second 5 minutes, they had to modify their bridge to make it 4 inches tall, at least 4 inches tall. And then the next 5 minutes, they had to make their bridge at least 4 inches wide. The last 10 minutes, I asked them to reinforce their bridge so that it could hold two 12-ounce water bottles and support all of its weight. And at the end, I took pictures of the students' work and showed them to them. So, makerspace ideas, that we kind of encouraged the bridge challenge um, to utilize were basically it was a team building exercise so that our students would start to work together and build and accomplish a task together. Initially, some of the students would build a bridge on their own, But since they had a limited number of rock blocks, at some point they had to pool their resources and work together and cooperate. They also had to follow directions and also learn how to measure with rulers in the project. And they had to work under time constraints, which kind of put a little more pressure on them and at times created a little bit of frustration, but they were able to accomplish the task probably 95% of the time. And the other byproduct was, they were creating and collaborating with each other, which was very important. So the scaffolding, uh, the scaffolding concepts that we kind of gained from the bridge challenge was even some of the second graders within their own class built more complex structures. You could see a difference between some of the designs of some of the students that were, a little more advanced at building and accessing their creativeness, and actually putting it together with their hands. Some of the better teams, they collaborated at a high level and they were able to work together to kind of build within those time restraints and parameters. And also, they completed each task in a much timelier fashion. And they also dealt with that frustration a little bit better. We had a few students that, project kind of broke at times, and dealing with the ability to just recover and get back to building is kind of a skill that we wanted to have incorporated into this project as well. So I read a great article about what's old is new again in School Library Journal, and I just kind of wanted to share some of the resources that it was able uh, to show me. And one of the things was this website called Sew It, the Workshop, and it's just a really good resource. Not everybody has access to all these sewing things, but you're able to get some really good ideas about what's coming back in vogue, and not just in school libraries, but even public libraries. Hand sewing workshops where stitching becomes kind of a you know a lesson, um, and even men and women, and certainly boys and girls, are able to sew some of these projects, which I thought was kind of interesting. The other website I wanted to share was the Learner Maker Lab, which is really unique, and it's kind of a interactive database for hands-on projects that this article shared, and I thought it's just a great resource as well, to kind of see some of the things that are out there in some of the STEAM projects. And what I thought was interesting is that it was easy to find materials, and it's not a lot of things that are that expensive to buy, that you can kind of incorporate and make some unique projects with. And then the third one, which I thought was very interesting as well, was let's stick it together. And this is one sticker at a time, and it has some really neat pixel art, and sticker posters that students can collaborate with, and very interesting on how they can group up on a project and get their hands on applying some of these stickers for a bigger, to kind of create a bigger picture, which I thought was interesting. So there's a couple resources of what's old is new again, that I discovered through this research. And then I wanted to share, one of the rotations that we did with magnets in a STEM makerspace um, uh, lesson that we did. And I thought it applied great, from kindergarten through fifth grade. You wouldn't think the fourth and fifth graders would do well with this, but they really enjoyed it as well. And what it was 7 or 8 magnet stations. We had one that was a science table, and we kind of explained what negative and positive poles were. We had magnetiles, we had doll magnets, we had zoo magnetiles, and then we had a couple foam magnet marble runs that were magnet attached to a board on a vertical. And the scaffolding in this lesson was we were able to add more complex magnet items into the mix by grade, but also you saw some of the marble runs get a little more intricate, with more turns and dips and drops, which was I thought was pretty interesting. But it worked across all grade levels and was really good. Some of the lessons learned, especially with some of the younger grades, was just rotating and going to a different desk. And the other thing was just having our kindergartners learn how to just stand up, put their hands on top, and just walk to the next station and not and just let go of that project they just built, which kind of taught taking turns and just having hands-on building and creativity as well. Another project we did was to identify fiction and nonfiction books with first and second graders. And, we read a nonfiction book and a fiction book about the life cycle of a butterfly. And we just discussed the difference in both. But through this makerspace, we were able to teach a library lesson about fiction and nonfiction, which I thought was very beneficial. And, our students really enjoyed being able to cut out the discs, color them, and then paste the leaves in their appropriate spot to demonstrate the lesson of, the life cycle of a butterfly. I also was able to read a very intriguing article about in the school library journal that surveyed 52% of librarians that tap Makerspace integration as the tech related programming that they are most excited to learn about, surpassing coding, which, I was very shocked to read that in that article. And I just wanted to pose this question to you all as a discussion is, would you prefer hands-on Makerspace uh, learning labs or teaching lessons, or do you prefer computer-based coding, and why? And the reason why I asked that is because I had a discussion with a couple of our teachers at the kindergarten and first grade level, and they were just discussing how their students do a lot better with hands on, and they have more, stamina with getting projects, coloring, pasting, and doing crafts. That way, they get their hands on something, and then just the computer-based programs. And they thought maybe it might be a effective having too much screen time through the COVID years or whatnot. So I just wanted to get your guys' take on that and start a discussion on what you thought. So thank you for listening and reading this project. I appreciate you guys. Thank you. Bye.